students, welcome to lecture 3 on MOOC courses on controlled drug delivery systems, which constitutes unit 1 of novel drug delivery systems BP 704T. Myself Dr. Chitra Gupta, Associate Professor, Department of Pharmacy, Lloyd Institute of Management and Technology. Before we begin today, I would like to take a recap from previous lecture. In previous lecture, we had discussed about the factors affecting design of controlled drug delivery systems. The drug properties emerged as the most important determinant in designing of such systems. They affect the release of the drug from the dosage form as well as the performance of the drug in the body. The properties can restrict or prohibit the placement of the drug in controlled drug delivery systems or the route of delivery. Thus, most of the time they are restrictive, making the design even more difficult. Therefore, it becomes mandatory to explore these properties in details. Today's lecture would be focused on the drug properties and how they affect the design of controlled drug delivery system. Drug properties have been classified into 3 categories for the purpose of study. They can be classified as biopharmaceutical characteristics of the drug. These include the molecular weight, aqueous solubility, partition coefficient, drug pKa value and ionization constant, route of administration, drug stability, etc. The second category are the pharmacokinetic characteristics of the drug. These include the absorption rate, elimination half-life, rate of metabolism, etc. Pharmacodynamic characteristics of the drug include therapeutic range, therapeutic index and plasma concentration response relationship. So, going on to the first property, that is the molecular weight of the drug. The molecular size and molecular weight of the drug are an important determinant in design of controlled drug delivery systems, because the drug from these systems is mostly released by the mechanism of diffusion. The drug diffuses across the barrier membranes and may be in the form of matrix or as coated reservoir products. Moreover, the drugs are absorbed by passive diffusion across the biological membrane. So, from both perspectives, diffusion is an important phenomenon involved in drug action. The rate of drug diffusion or diffusivity coefficient is inversely related to the molecular weight of the drug. Not only this, the size and shape of the molecules is equally important. Thus, larger the molecular size, slower will be the rate of diffusion. Larger the molecular weight, slower will be the diffusivity of the drug. It has been observed that ideal molecular weight range for a drug to be absorbed significantly and suitable for design of controlled drug delivery systems is 150 to 400 Daltons. Drugs with a molecular weight greater than 500 Daltons are not suitable for formulating controlled drug delivery preparations. Next important property is the aqueous solubility of the drug. Now, aqueous solubility has been defined as the maximum amount of drug that can go into solution at a given temperature. Drug must be in solution form at the site of absorption in order to achieve the desired plasma concentrations. Thus, the drugs with poor aqueous solubility pose bioavailability problem. An aqueous solubility range of less than 0.001 milligram per ml makes a drug unsuitable for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. However, drugs with aqueous solubility greater than 0.1 milligram per ml are ideal for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. This can also be explained with the help of an example of tetracycline. Tetracycline are highly soluble at the pH of stomach. While they are less soluble at pH of the intestines, less soluble in intestines. However, the site of absorption of tetracyclines is in intestines. So, owing to poor aqueous solubility in the intestines, which is their primary site of absorption, these tetracyclines are a poor drug candidate for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. Another important property is drug pKa and ionization constant. All of us know that most drugs are either weak acids or weak bases, because of which they exhibit pH dependent ionization. That is, the extent of ionization of the drug will depend upon the pH of the site, the pKa value of the drug, and this is summarized in the form of an equation which is called as Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. By using these equations, we can find out the extent of ionization of a drug at any given site. Let us recall there are two Henderson-Hasselbalch equations, one for weakly acidic drugs. For weakly acidic drugs, the equation is pH is equal to pKa plus log concentration of ionized drug upon log concentration of unionized drug. For weakly basic drugs, the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation is pH is equal to pKa plus log concentration of unionized drug upon concentration of ionized drug. So, this way, by making use of Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, we can predict the extent of ionization of the drug at any given pH value. This is important because it is mainly the unionized forms of the drugs which are lipid soluble, which will be able to cross the biological membranes and which will be absorbed and will be bioavailable. It has been found that for a drug to show significant effects, it must exist to an extent of 0.1 to 5% in an unionized state at any given pH value, then only it will be significantly absorbed and it will show significant bioavailability. The drugs, weakly acidic drugs with a pKa value of 3 to 7.5 and weakly basic drugs with pKa value of 7 to 11 are particularly susceptible to pH in the extent of ionization. So, these drugs will exhibit particularly a pH dependent ionization pattern and may pose bioavailability problem if they are not released at a suitable pH from the controlled drug delivery system. Another important factor is the stability of the drug. It is very important that the drug be stable at the site of absorption. It should also be stable within the designed dosage form. If at any of these stages the drug is complexed or unstable, the bioavailability would be adversely affected. So, the drug should be stable throughout the intestinal length, because the absorption can occur along the entire length of the intestines, although the primary site of drug absorption are the small intestines. And secondly, once released from the dosage form, the drug should not be susceptible to enzymatic degradation, acid or basic hydrolysis or complexation with the normal GIT constituents. Instability or degradation of drugs may lead to decreased bioavailability of the drug. For example, drugs that are unstable at the pH of the stomach, they are designed such that the drug is released in the intestines. They are mostly supplied as enteric coated products, and that will lead to release of the drug in the intestines, where they will be absorbed safely. The next important property is the partition coefficient of the drug. Let us recall what was partition coefficient of the drug. Partition coefficient denoted as Ko by W is basically the ratio in which the drug distributes itself between two immiscible phases whenever it is placed at the interface. So, the partition coefficient is basically the ratio in which the drug will distribute itself between oil and water phase, that is concentration of drug in oil phase upon concentration of drug in aqueous phase. For bioavailability purposes, often the oil phase is replaced by octanol, and we consider what is called as N-octanol coefficient of the drug. Thus, partition coefficient or N-octanol coefficient of the drug will determine how much of the drug will be able to cross the biological membranes or will partition into the biological tissues. Drugs with extremely high or low partition coefficient values are not good candidates for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. They will either exhibit low flux into the tissues if their partition coefficient value is very low, and if they have high partition coefficient value, they will have tendency to accumulate in the tissues because of the rapid flux. So, none of the conditions is desirable. A balanced distribution of drug between oil and aqueous phase is the best. Next important parameter is the dose size. As discussed in previous lecture, the dose of the drug to be formulated as controlled drug delivery systems should not be very high, because these are the dosage forms which contain several doses or multiple doses of a conventional dose in a single unit. So, if the dose is less than 1 gram, then the drug candidate will be suitable for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. If the dose is larger than 1 gram, then the resulting system would be too large to swallow. Thus, drugs with large doses are not suitable for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. Similarly, if there is a drug with a large dose and its biological half-life is also short, then that drug is at dual loss, because its dose is also high and its biological half-life is also less. So, we need to incorporate larger number of large dose of drug in a single dosage form, and that will make it more difficult to incorporate, or that will add to the bulk of the dosage form. So, ideally the drug dose should be less than 1 gram and biological half-life should be longer than 2 hours. So, these were the biopharmaceutical characteristics of the drug. Next, we go on to the pharmacodynamic characteristics of the drug. The first pharmacodynamic characteristic is the therapeutic range. Therapeutic range was defined last time as the difference between the minimum effective concentration and the maximum safe concentration. So, larger the gap between minimum effective concentration and maximum safe concentration, we say broader is the therapeutic range and safer it is to formulate the drug as a controlled drug delivery system. Next pharmacodynamic characteristic of the drug is the therapeutic index of the drug. Therapeutic index is defined as the ratio between LD50 and ED50. LD50 is lethal dose in 50% of the population, whereas ED50 is effective dose in 50% of the population. The drugs with therapeutic index greater than 10, that is the difference between the LD50 and ED50 is 10 times. Such drug candidates are considered as safe for formulating as controlled drug delivery systems, whereas drugs with low therapeutic index, they have got a lesser safety margin, and as a result, even if there is slightly high unexpected release from the dosage form, they can lead to toxic manifestations. This may become even life threatening in case of failure of delivery systems and dose dumping, or if the drug happens to be a potent drug. The therapeutic index has to be borne into mind while formulating or selecting a drug candidate for making controlled drug delivery systems. Another pharmacodynamic characteristic is the plasma concentration response relationship. A good correlation between the response and plasma concentration of the drug is must. Drugs with poor or no correlation are poor candidates for formulating as controlled drug delivery systems. Example of such a drug is Rizapine. Next important factor is the patient condition. Chronic diseases are better managed by controlled drug delivery systems. Say if a person is suffering from headache or stomach or is in an emergency condition, controlled drug delivery systems would be totally useful. In fact, you need a fast acting drug delivery system in that case, because in controlled drug delivery system, the drug release would be delayed, drug action would be delayed, and the therapeutic effects of the drug would be delayed. Example of a chronic disease where we can make use of controlled drug delivery systems is in rheumatoid arthritis. Often the patients of rheumatoid arthritis have got morning stiffness in their limbs. So, this morning stiffness can be averted if at night time before sleeping the patient is given a controlled drug delivery of aspirin, which will maintain the flow of blood in joints, and as a result that will avert the morning stiffness of the limbs. Coming to the last category of factors that affect the selection of drug for controlled drug delivery system. Now, here the pharmacokinetic parameters include absorption, elimination, metabolism and drug distribution. The first one is the absorption rate. Drugs with slow or variable absorption are poor candidates for formulating controlled drug delivery systems, because such drug candidates are not absorbed through the entire length of the GIT. Example is iron. Another property, the high drugs with high aqueous solubility but with poor absorption rates. See, the aqueous solubility of the drug is high in this case, but it has got poor absorption. The probable cause could be the partition coefficient of the drug, low partition coefficient of the drug. Such drug candidates are also not suitable for formulating as controlled drug delivery systems, and this is exemplified by decamethonium. Then the third type of drugs, drugs absorbed actively or through absorption window in the small intestines. Absorption window is basically existence of certain carrier systems in the intestines, a group of carriers which forms therapeutic window for active absorption of a particular drug. So, they will lead to comparatively higher absorption rates. Thus, these drug candidates are not suitable for formulating as controlled drug delivery systems, because as soon as the drug would be released, it would be absorbed and drug therapeutic action cannot be controlled. Last one, drugs which are absorbed from specific parts of GIT, like I gave you the example of tetracyclines earlier. So, these tetracyclines, they have got less stability in the intestines, but they are absorbed from the intestines. So, they will be poorly absorbed, hence they will not constitute good candidature for controlled drug delivery formulations. Next, we have the elimination half-life of the drug. Elimination half-life of the drug is defined as the time period during which half of the drug is eliminated from the body. So, elimination half-life basically governs the dosing interval of the drug. In case of controlled drug delivery system, if the elimination half-life of the drug is short, that will simply imply that the drug will require frequent dosing in conventional drug delivery system. When such a drug is to be formulated as controlled drug delivery systems, the number of doses to be incorporated would be too large and the system would be bulkier. Hence, such drugs will not constitute an ideal candidate for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. Thus, drugs with a biological half-life or elimination half-life in the range of 2 to 5 hours are most suitable because they will lead to reduced dosing frequency and increased patient compliance as is desired out of these formulations. Lastly, the drugs with biological half-lives less than 2 hours. Biological half-lives less than 2 hours. That means the frequency of dosing is high, they will not constitute a suitable candidate. Similarly, drugs with biological half-lives greater than 8 hours, they will also not be suitable for formulating sustained release products or controlled drug delivery systems, because these drugs will automatically be giving a prolonged action and will be giving a controlled release of the drug. So, they offer no clear advantage of formulating as controlled drug delivery systems. Such drug candidates are hence poor candidature for selection for making controlled drug delivery systems. Next, we go on to metabolism of drugs. Basically, metabolism refers to the process of inactivation of drug in the body. The drug is a foreign substance to the body and it has to be eliminated from the body, and this elimination involves metabolism of drug, that is conversion of drug into inactive inert metabolites which can be easily excreted from the drug, except for in case of prodrug, where metabolism leads to formation of active drug from inactive form. So, the drugs which are metabolic inducers or inhibitors. Now, drug candidates themselves can be classified into two categories: metabolic inducers and metabolic inhibitors. Inducers are those drugs which can increase the rate of metabolism in the body by inducing hepatic, liver microsomal enzymes. Similarly, inhibitors are the drugs which will slow down the metabolism in the body by inhibiting the hepatic microsomal enzymes. So, if these kind of drugs are formulated as controlled drug delivery systems, they will lead to uncontrolled plasma levels, because the basic aim of the controlled drug delivery system was to maintain a plasma concentration in the therapeutically effective range above the minimum effective concentration and below the maximum safe concentration. So, if you look at the plasma concentration versus time profile, it should be like this for a controlled drug delivery system. But if the drug is itself a metabolic inducer or inhibitor, then this plasma drug blood level cannot be controlled or kept steady. So, such drug candidates are not a suitable candidature for making controlled drug delivery formulations. Besides this, drugs which are susceptible to hepatic first pass metabolism or pre-systemic metabolism or first pass effect are not suitable candidates for making controlled drug delivery systems. They will lead to poor bioavailability. However, there are routes of delivery through which we can skip this first pass metabolism and we can formulate or we can deliver the drug through those routes where the first pass metabolism is skipped, and there we can make use of controlled drug delivery systems through that particular route. For example, transdermal drug delivery, bucco-adhesive drug delivery, muco-adhesive drug delivery, etc. Going on to protein binding, the last pharmacokinetic parameter. Now, drugs which are extensively bound to plasma protein, say to an extent of greater than 80%, offer no advantage of formulating as controlled drug delivery systems, because if you recall, the protein drug complex is a reversible complex and such that the complex dissociates into protein and free drug to replenish the drug in the plasma. Therefore, the bound drugs naturally are sustained in their release and they need not be formulated as controlled drug delivery systems. Next is circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm refers to biological, physical or chemical changes in the body during different time periods of the day. Example, the diurnal variation in heart rate, blood flow, enzyme levels, liver activity, blood pressure and ocular pressure. These are the parameters which show diurnal variations. So, drugs whose therapeutic effectiveness is significantly affected by these parameters, they will be poor candidates for controlled drug delivery. So, such kinds of drugs may not be selected for formulating controlled drug delivery systems. So, let me summarize for today. For therapeutic effectiveness of controlled drug delivery systems, not only the release of the drug is important, but the drug bioavailability is equally important. That is, the drug should be able to be released from the system as well as it should be absorbed into the systemic circulation, as well as it should be able to cross the biological membranes to reach the site of action. Secondly, both these parameters, that is the release of the drug and absorption of drug or bioavailability of drug, they are dependent upon the properties of the drug substance. Thus, drug properties are an important determinant in selection of drug for formulating as controlled drug delivery system and design of controlled drug delivery systems. So, that is all in today's lecture, and next time we will go on to approaches used in designing controlled drug delivery formulations. Thank you very much for your patient listening.